You know the bit in Les Mis, if you've seen it? Well, if not, there's a bit where Javert jumps off of a bridge into a river. In the like drama school production I went to see, it was the single best version. There were people either side of the stage with blue ribbons shaking them, you know, like that sea effect. And it was like a little platform. He just jumped, screaming, and then he rolled off stage.
Oh,
You saw him roll away, and then the scene just changed. It was the best thing I'd ever seen.
So welcome to the Brightside podcast. This week we have the spotlight on theatre, and your hosts are Rebecca, also known as Becky, who's one of the most talented actors I know, and like me, she is forever cursed to play men in plays.
Yes, and I am joined as always by Millie, who there is no other person more suitable for the Brightside podcast, as she is a literal ray of sunshine. I'm very glad to be joined alongside.
I just want to say something deeply offensive now to prove you wrong. So this week we are joined by a lot of people who've dabbled in acting, writing, performing, and we'll just ask them to introduce themselves and say the name of a theatre performance that means a lot to them.
Okay, hi. So yeah, I'm Sam. I'm 23 years old, and the theatre performance that means a lot to me was an Edinburgh Fringe show called Splosh.
My name's Ellie. A theatre performance that means a lot to me was Pantomime 99.
I'm Louis. I'm 23 from Tunbridge Wells, and a performance that influenced me very dearly was King Lear.
My name is Med. I'm old, and my play that inspired me was Marvel Us by the Just Us League.
So, do you want to tell us a bit more about why you chose your performances?
Splosh, an interesting name.
Yeah, so it was an Edinburgh Fringe show called Splosh by Ben Target. Don't know how that's pronounced. This was 2 years ago now. I was in Edinburgh at the time for the Fringe, obviously, and we decided to meet up with Louis for the day because we were in Scotland and he was in Scotland on a family holiday, so we all met in Edinburgh. We hadn't really planned anything to do that day, so we were like, okay, let's just find some shows to go see. So we went to see Boogie Nights, but with a K.
I feel like I know where this is going.
If you can't guess from the title of that what kind of play that was a lot of fun.
It was one of the most farcical things I've ever seen. It was the Knights of Boogie trying to reclaim their land from the hard rock enclave, and there were a lot of 70s boogie and disco tracks versus a lot of hard rock and metal tracks performed in context with altered words. But that's not the show we're talking about.
That's not the show we're talking about. So after this show, we were coming out and we were given all these leaflets for the shows that were happening in the same venue.
It's mad in the Fringe, isn't it? Because you just have the streets lined with leaflets.
Oh yeah, there's the Royal Mile, and then there's at the bottom there's like a big square where lots of street performances happen. There's a lot of magic, a lot of circus acts kind of thing. So we came out of the show, we went up to the square, and we were like, we don't actually know what to do next. So we were looking through the leaflets we got, and I was looking on the app, and there was this free-to-go-to performance called Splosh in the venue that we'd just been in. So we're like, okay, it starts in like 20 minutes, let's go and see that. I had no expectations or anything for it.
All we knew about it was what the person who handed us the leaflet had said. And the person who handed us the leaflet said something akin to, it's really relaxed comedy, something like that, or something like mindful comedy, or something of that nature. And the leaflet itself had a picture of a man wearing a swim cap and goggles.
Do you want me to get the leaflet? Because I have it pinned on my wall. So this is the leaflet that we got. From one side, there's no writing, there's nothing. There's just a picture of him. It's all like turquoise blue. He's wearing full turquoise blue ensemble. He's wearing a turquoise blue hat, goggles, and he's got this teeny tiny cup and a little straw in it, and he's drinking out of it. It makes no sense.
But it caught your attention, and it got you curious enough to go.
It's got like the energy of a meme.
Yeah.
That could definitely become a meme. Yeah. It's fantastic.
me and the boys having our nightly H2O at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
We turned up to this show. We had no idea what was going on. a lot of the Edinburgh Fringe venues are like underground kind of venues.
Yeah, all built into basements and that sort
yeah.
of thing. Before the show started, we noticed that it smelt like a swimming pool.
Yeah,
because he had put an air diffuser in the room that was gently spraying this light mist, which had a swimming pool kind of smell to it, just all around this venue, so that when you came in, it smelt like a swimming pool.
That is attention to detail.
Yeah, we had no idea what was going on. We actually got to sit on the front row of this. So he comes in and he gives us all like 2 bits of paper and a pen, and he says, "You'll need these later." So he starts the show and he's talking about how he wanted to be on the swim team, but he wasn't the best swimmer, so he never got on the swim team. So he ended up being a sort of a lifeguard in a swimming pool, his local swimming pool. So that was the sort of general gist of it. There's a lot of like tangents and weird things that he just start talking about. So the first thing he did with the piece of paper, he was like, "Okay, so I want everyone to write on this piece of paper something that you really like about yourself. Something that you're really proud of about yourself. And then I want you to fold it up and I want you to put it somewhere on your body. Oh, you know, the jeans pockets, the little tiny jean pocket, you can put it in there just to make sure it's always on yourself." And he said, "Keep onto this bit of paper." So he started going on about the show. There's a trivia round in the middle of it where he just got out.
So he had a big quiz in the middle where he started asking questions about swimming and all of the questions were incredibly specific and nobody knew the answers to most of these questions.
And then he started drawing fish and asking us to guess the fish. Obviously, it was a tuna, but it just looked like a normal fish. And then he was like, "Okay, get your second bit of paper. I want you to draw an animal on it. And I want you to fold it up and I want to keep it on yourself." I drew a giraffe, and I think Louis drew a stick insect. And then he was like, "Okay, now this is your spirit animal if you were drowning in a swimming pool." So mine's actually quite useful because I feel like he'd be able to help me out of the swimming pool. Louis, not so much. Ollie's got is an insect.
No, I was not very well. At another point as well, he took a teeny tiny piece of paper and he drew a swimming pool on it, placed it in the aisle in between the 2 columns of the audience, and proceeded to pretend to dive into this piece of paper on the floor. This was after he had talced himself. He decided to talc up, and so he walked all the way through the aisle throwing talcum powder, and Sam was absolutely covered in this talcum powder as he came past.
I was wearing like black jeans and my black Leicester hoodie. I was absolutely covered because I was literally in the aisle seat. And then once he'd done that, he was like, "Okay, I'm going to get changed into my swimming kit." So what he does is he takes off his shirt that he was wearing, and then he takes off his pants, and then he's like, "No, guys, I don't want you looking at me while I'm changing. I want you all to turn around and face the back of it." So everyone turns around and faces the back of the auditorium. And at the back of the auditorium is a naked cardboard cutout of himself, just covering his junk. He he turns around again, and he's actually still wearing exactly the same stuff, but now he's got a swimming cap on.
He's put his swimming hat on.
It's a great moment.
I feel like I've lived through the show now.
It's such a weird experience. Very ludicrous, to say the least. But the reason I remember it, because this was all very funny and everything, and then it starts getting towards the end of the show where it's all wrapping up. And throughout the whole show, it's all very calm, all very like soft. He's getting us to close our eyes a lot, think about things a lot. And he gets to the end and he's saying about how this one day at school, he was annoyed and he didn't want to go into school that day. So he basically played juvie, went out. I think he spent most of his day sat in a tree, just like thinking about things and thinking how he wasn't worth anything and everything like that. And turns out that day that he'd avoided school was an actual school shooting, and he lost lots of his friends. And so every day since he started going out to this tree and he started writing things that he really liked about himself, and he kept it on his person, he kept it in his wallet. So that's why he told us to do. I don't know, that really just sort of stuck with me. It's so out of the blue, but it made so much sense. And the whole show just sort of came together to be this really thought-provoking, really funny show that we had no expectations for.
You'd only get something like that at the Edinburgh Fringe.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like, if I saw this leaflet anywhere, I wouldn't go see this show, because I have no idea what this is about, and I don't want to risk my money on it. but we have nothing better to do that day. So
And
we
just
went
for
and go see.
people listening, the flyer is worse than you imagine when Sam described it.
Yeah,
It's so bad.
Just shows the variety you get in theatre.
Oh,
And
yeah.
definitely.
while we're on that, shall we move on to the next person? Ellie,
Yeah.
you chose Pantomime 99, which for those who
I
don't
did.
know, was a play we put on in Leicester University Theatre. And do you want to tell us a bit more about it?
It was an interesting play. It's a murder mystery almost, with crime-solving elements, a detective thriller with Santa, and it was mad. The brainchild of the wonderful Chris Vincent, who a few people from LUT know about.
That's
and
the
it was
most
my
concise
first.
it's ever been described.
It was my first foray into university theatre, and it had a huge impact on me because I don't think without it I would have been as involved in the society. That's why it's quite a big part in my life. And of course, you directed, Millie.
Well, what can I say? I actually really loved the plot of it. The idea of Santa accidentally murdering the narrator of the show, and then the whole play being a chase to try and catch him.
The play itself was broken into two halves, wasn't it? You had the 99 bit comes from the show Brooklyn Nine-Nine, where you have
I didn't know that.
you have the comical police procedural on one side, and you had the investigation about the murder in half of the play, and then the other half was Santa and his elves trying to cover it up. So you had this balance all the way through of these two groups, and they were both funny in their own individual way, and it cut back and forth between the two.
And yeah, it was a really great show for getting to know each other. I think a lot of theatre kids find their families in theatre societies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Louis, which one did you choose again?
I chose King Lear. It's a Shakespeare. You
wonderful.
can't get away with talking about theatre without talking about Shakespeare at least once. I have played King Lear in Shakespeare's popular play King Lear, but that's not the instance of the play that I'm referring to. I studied King Lear when I did my English literature A-level, and it made a really big impression on me because I had studied Shakespeare before, but I'd never really genuinely connected with it and enjoyed it to the extent that I enjoyed King Lear. I really loved the plot. I loved the character study and the way in which the story follows this descent into what we commonly refer to as madness, but we also think of as dementia. My class actually went and we watched a live performance of it at the National Theatre in London. This was back in 2013. The National Theatre has an enormous stage. There have several stages, but this specific one has a giant revolving floor in it, or it certainly did at the time. And a lot of the play is set out in the wilderness. For the entire time that it was out on the heath or the wilderness, or there's just the English countryside somewhere in the middle of nowhere, the entire floor was constantly spinning, and actors were getting on and off and walking around, and entrances would open up out of the floor and continue spinning, and people would get in and out of these entrances, and they were having to act and talk and walk and adjust themselves to this gentle revolving floor all the time. And then it stopped at the end of one of the acts, and the floor rose up to form a giant cliff over which a great soliloquy was delivered, and there was thunder and lightning, and it was a fantastic piece of theatre, and it's one of my most memorable theatre-going experiences. One of the things that was actually most memorable was something that went wrong. Right towards the end of the first half of the play, the actor playing the role of Edmund began to lose his voice, and he actually lost it completely by the end of the first half. And in the second half, his role was taken on by the understudy. As it happened, just before the second half, the director of the play came out onto the stage and apologised to the audience. Sorry this has happened. And he admitted that the actors had basically been ad-libbing the last couple of scenes that the actor playing Edmund had featured in. And it kind of brought home to me the skill that the actors have and the ability that they have to handle those situations, because obviously it's an incredibly stressful moment when you've been rehearsing a particular script and suddenly one of your co-actors can't talk anymore. That was one of the things that made it so fantastically memorable, that actually something went so wrong.
It's interesting you said about people getting things wrong. I remember when my mum was in a play once and she knew the other actor didn't know his lines, and she made me go through them with her and purposely say the lines in the wrong order just to see if she could save it if he went off. It's scary enough when you know your lines and you know everyone else knows their lines, let alone in that kind of situation.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the ability to recover from stressful situations like that is a skill. I don't think anyone has mastered it perfectly.
No, unless you're some kind of improv artist. Med, what was your play?
My play was Marvelous by the Just Us League, who are
Yes!
a comedy troupe. I say troupe, there's two of them. And they performed basically a farcical summary of the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe films by themselves for about an hour. And they had basically no budget, no like special lighting or costumes or anything like that. They just used a lot of improv and just took their own comedic take on it. I saw this, I want to say it could have been last year or 2 years ago. I'm not sure. Time is weird. When me and Chloe, one of my friends, who've just been mass buying like lots of theatre tickets, and we ended up seeing this at the UI Theatre with little context of what it was going to be. Like, we knew they were taking like some kind of liberties and trying to describe what happened in those films, but we didn't know that there was only going to be two of them. We thought that there was going to be a whole cast. It really took us by surprise. The reason why I wanted to talk about that is because these two people have taken this show and done it all across the country in something that's so simple of a concept, but have really made it their own. I thought, if they can do that, then there's no reason why I can't do something within theatre myself, even if it's just a small idea that I can expand on later on.
Oh, definitely. I'd love to see that again. I saw that as well. And they were just so talented. And it was so funny. It kind of reminds me, has anyone seen Reduced Shakespeare?
No.
Okay, Reduced Shakespeare is a bit similar to that in that it's, I think, 2 or 3 actors trying to perform the entire works of Shakespeare within the space of a play. And they do it in loads of different ways, like one they do through a puppet show, one they do through interpretive dance.
Yeah.
How did they get around copyright? Because I know when a lot of people are like thinking about these ideas, Marvel is obviously not a concept they created. So like, what ways do you think that they made it their own, or like made it that,
I believe, and I know this very loosely, I might be wrong, so correct me if I am, but I believe because it's basically parody that they're allowed to do things like that.
Good old parody law.
Yeah. It's not like they were just like repeating everything that had happened there. Because it's an improv show, every performance is going to be different because every crowd will bring something different to it. Like, for example, there was one part in the performance that they did. They were going over Captain America Winter Soldier, where Captain America has this line where he says, "I can do this all day." No, wait, no, not Winter Soldier, sorry, Civil War. The Marvel fan doesn't know what he's talking about. In Civil War, he says that.
Who are you?
I don't know.
What have you done with Med?
I'm judging you.
My entire sense of self is crumbling right now. But anyway, one of the actors wanted to perform that line, but he kept doing it wrong, and they wanted someone from the crowd to direct him in getting that line correctly. And of course, Mr. Director here was chosen. So he went over it over and over and over again as he's slowly getting knocked out by his like co-actor in this scene.
Oh god.
It becomes more hilarious and more ridiculous as we keep going and as you keep getting it wrong in character, of course. So, yeah.
Becky, did you choose any?
I have one, but I think I'll discuss it later on because I know, obviously, I have prior knowledge. The Power.
The Power.
So, yes, it's going to my head. So I know eventually it'll come up. So I can talk about it then. I love like the variety of plays we've got. They're all sort of different and each have a little bit element of comedy here and there, but there's really something for everything, which I really, really enjoy.
Yeah, and we all chose them for different reasons. Like, I just wanted to do a shout out to a play I saw quite recently, actually, and I saw it with Ellie. It was A Number, which we saw at the Bridge Theatre, and it's written by Carol Churchill. And the particular projection we saw had Colin Morgan and another very famous actor who I should remember the name of. But what was wonderful about this was not only the writing was good, but the scene changes were the thing that I remember the most from it, just because it was all done in one room, but after every scene, the room turned. So you'd see another wall at the back that you hadn't seen before. But they did these scene changes, and it must have been less than 3 seconds, and the entire room moved. And I still have no idea how they did that. If anyone can reveal the magic to me, that would be great.
It's not just the actors in really good plays, it's like everything around them. Like I went to see Phantom of the Opera in the Curve, which was fantastic. And what they did with the stage, like they brought a bunch of stairs, and it was the biggest pile of stairs I'd ever seen. Where were they keeping that? And I love how people can really adapt to space and just turn it into something really magical. I think what we need to do now is, as we've all sort of gotten to know each other and our interests, we really need to know, what is your team name?
How are you going to present yourself to the world?
We could go with the Boogie Nights, but with a K.
Oh no, I'm not accepting Boogie Nights. No way.
Let's
Not
go with
after
Boogie
that,
Nights.
Only if it's Boogie Nights with a K spelt right after it.
Yeah, no, obviously, Boogie Nights with a K.
I like the idea of incorporating the word player as a pun on a play.
I feel like we already decided on Boogie Nights, though.
The thing is, we should have thought about
Sam's
this.
really
No one
set on
decided
it.
that.
Yeah, I
Me,
think
Med
you've been
did.
overruled.
I mean,
No,
Ellie,
I
what do
wanna-
you think?
Me?
Boogie Nights with a K?
Sure.
No.
Yeah.
Yes.
We have a
Well,
majority, Louis.
it's been decided. That's a fantastic name.
Yeah, so we'll move on to our next segment. We just want to talk a bit each week about inspirational news stories to do with the topic we're talking about. And it's a bit difficult this week because we've got theatre, and currently, because of the thing that will not be mentioned, there are no theatrical performances taking place. But because of that, this week on the Inspiration Station, we thought we'd talk a bit about how theatres have come up with new ways to be ingenious and ways to get their performances to us even when we're trapped at home. An example of this is the National Theatre, which has teamed up with YouTube to stream their big performances for a week at a time. So you've got great performances like Twelfth Night, Frankenstein, Antony and Cleopatra, and I think they're still doing this.
Which were the ones that we watched? We've watched a couple of those, haven't we?
Was it One Man, Two Governors?
A Servant to Two
Yeah.
Governors. We saw that
I
one.
thought it was One Man, Two
One Man,
Governors.
Two Governors.
One Man, Two Governors. Was
with
that
James
the one with
Corden.
James Corden? Ah.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was. Yeah, we watched that one. We watched a couple from other theatre companies as well. We watched an adaptation of Much Ado About Nothing, and we watched I'm trying to remember.
It just had miners in it, that's all I can remember.
I can't remember what it was, but the set design for that was absolutely incredible. It had a massive open warehouse style space with a giant gantry along the top and a floor that sunk down as they mined, and they had mine carts that they were rolling around the stage,
And
it was
lots of
loud.
northern accents.
And lots of northern accents, which Ellie loved. Yes, so we've seen some really good ones. I like Much Ado About Nothing as well. I have a small set of Shakespeare's that I really like.
Well, you really liked the fact that it was set during World War One.
Yes, World War One.
You liked the way it was adjusted for
Yeah.
that setting.
Obviously, one of the things that people always do when they're adapting an old play, and it's not just Shakespeare, but in particular, it's the obvious example because there are so many different interpretations out there for all of them. When you choose to move it from its historic setting and put it into a new context, there's so many different ways you can play it. But the point of Much Ado About Nothing is that it does happen to be set at the end of a war period, but they converted it into being set around the end of World War One. And it added a fresh take on the way that the beginning of the play is presented. It had a massive change to costume and set design, and the artistic direction of it was really, really good. I mean, you were saying as well that you liked a lot of the costuming and the set design as well.
Yeah.
It had a Christmas theme to it as well. It was all set at Christmas, which the original play does not allude to. But
There's some singing as well.
yes, they had some carols in there and all sorts. So it was really nice to watch. That was a Globe one, if I remember correctly, wasn't it?
It might have been.
It was Globe or Royal Shakespeare.
It's because there's two different companies that were doing Shakespeare, so I can't
Yeah.
remember which one it went with.
Yeah.
Of course, one of the things about these shows that have been released during the thing that shall not be named, they've all been pre-recorded and pre-filmed, you know, so there's only so many to actually put out there before things get more difficult for theatre.
Yeah.
Before we have to rely on bootlegs. Not that I'm advocating that, but they are out there.
You say
If
that,
you
but
want to look for
some-
that.
something that is sort of coming out of this is like a sort of a global thing, and a lot of people, I've seen reports about sort of this is more towards sort of like classical things, where some opera companies are now coming together, especially in Italy. They're starting to come back together, so it gives people opportunities to watch things that they wouldn't normally watch, because there's content that isn't like on their front doorstep but is still available to them. And another thing that I'm gonna shoehorn in here is a lot of companies are thinking of ingenious ways of sort of sparking interest. So a lot of doing like online workshops and like ENO and boot camp companies, they're doing online workshops with children, and it's opening new doorways that perhaps a child is not just like on stage, it's backstage, there's costume making, and it's promoting pathways. Because we're relying so much about internet, we're connecting so much more and pushing ideas forward. It might inspire a lot more people to come forward afterwards, which I think is a really good thing.
Yeah, and it's really doing wonders for accessibility. So, for example, going to see a show in the West End, not only is it expensive to get the ticket, but if you live much further north, then you've got to pay for the fare to get all the way up there. It can end up costing more than a small holiday. So I think doing more things online just opens up so many avenues to new people. And while we're on the topic of finding ingenious ways around the problem, Lou and Ellie, could you mention any projects you've been working on?
Oh, any project? Now, I think we have a project we might have been working on.
No, we don't. No projects. Sorry, Millie.
I think you're wrong. I'm sure there's one thing.
We might have something.
Just
yeah.
a little one.
Is this a pantomime?
We've been rehearsing just this bit over and over. We want to make
Over.
You've got your lines wrong.
Yeah, I know. I didn't write them down. But yes, so Ellie and myself have decided that we want to put on a radio play, and we will be doing it through the guise of our freshly developed theatre company, which we've called Fervid Theatre Works. It's been in the works for a long time. We've been planning it for ages, but the current situation has...
It gave us a kick up the bum.
It
to
has.
Set something up.
It's expedited all of our plans.
Yeah.
So, we've kind of put together a production
11th to the 13th of June.
Yes, on the 11th to 13th of June, the actors that we have managed to rope in will be performing a live performance of Oscar Wilde's The Importance of Being Earnest, and it will be live streamed on YouTube and on Facebook simultaneously, and it will be available for viewing after the fact in case you miss it, and we'll be talking about how it's come about as well in between the acts of the performance. We've got a cast that we're incredibly happy with. We had auditions, and we've cast the whole thing, and
from everywhere in the country as well. It's been wonderful to be able to keep rehearsing with people, and we don't even have to be in the same location.
Yeah.
Of course, online rehearsals have thrown up a few challenges, and especially the actors have said to us, it's sometimes harder to feel a connection to the other characters, so we've had to work with the actors to look like they're talking to people. They're learning a lot of new skills, and everyone's been chucked into the deep end with it, really. It's not something that any of us are experienced with, but I think people have definitely settled in.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of fun.
It has.
Wonderful. Everyone tune in on the 11th to the 13th of June.
What time? Just to make sure we've got everything on there.
7 p.m. on all three of those days.
And forever afterwards.
And always available from that point
Eternally.
on. But yes, search for Fervid Theatre Works on Facebook or on YouTube, and then you can subscribe or follow those pages so that you can see updates when we post them.
Lovely. Let's move on to the biggest section of the podcast, the quiz.
Exciting. Yes. I hope you're prepared. Can we just have a recap of your team name? Boogie Nights?
Boogie Nights
with a K.
Yeah.
Wonderful. It's so concise and it just rolls off the tongue. I love it.
Yeah.
One question in this quiz will involve all the answers being right or all the answers being wrong.
Oh, yes.
So basically, you guys make up a team, and every episode will have its own team. And at the end of all the episodes, the team with the most points will win a very prestigious, illustrious prize that has not been decided yet.
I knew it.
No. when we discussed this in the tech run, Rebecca says she's going to give us a dog and a cat.
That was
is
not.
right.
She did
That
say
was-
this.
Sam gets
She
the
did
cat,
say
I
this.
get the dog. That's,
Yeah, exactly.
That's what's happening. Yeah, we all win.
If you said it in a recording, it is technically a legally binding contract.
I think so. Yeah.
But anyway, swiftly moving on.
Kick it off with the first question.
Yes. In what decade were female actresses first allowed to perform? A. 1580s, B. 1640s, or C. 1660s?
I'd go 60s because boy, do people hate women, apparently.
Yeah.
Well, I know there were Roman actresses around far earlier than the 1500s. Becky,
That's true.
so-
Maybe we
What you're
should
saying?
None of the
specify.
above.
Maybe we should specify in the UK. In
My dissertation on Roman theatre refutes your question.
You've
I
been
think we
had,
should
Millie.
say since medieval times.
So when you wrote the play History Girls, Ellie,
Yes.
you researched a character called Edward Keeneston that I got to play, who
Did.
was miffed by the fact that women started playing his roles, but I don't remember when he was alive from your research.
I feel like it was the 1600s, but it was a long time ago that I did this research. I've slept since.
You slept many times. It's been 6 months.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I feel like it was the 1600s.
Yeah.
Which
I'll go
one?
with
We've
the
got
first answer.
1640s or 1660s?
60s.
Yeah, that's the same.
That's what I'm going with.
So I think that's probably our best guess.
So, women were first permitted, other than Roman actresses, were permitted to perform on the English stage in the early 1660s
Boom.
Yeah.
after
Well
the
done.
restoration of King Charles II.
So, just a bit of background for this question. Respectable women wouldn't consider a career in acting because it was considered along the same lines as prostitution.
But because the profession demanded the availability to read and memorize lines and to sing and dance, the first actresses came from varied social backgrounds. And also, if anyone has seen Shakespeare in Love, that's one of the main themes of the film. It's actually, I know this is not a film podcast and we've already been there and done that, but it was still very, very good. Millie, I shall pass to you for the next question.
Wonderful. What is considered bad luck in a theatre? Putting your shirt on the wrong way round, whistling, or wearing blue on stage?
Now, I've known you for a while, Millie, and I know that you are somebody that cares quite deeply about things that can be lucky or unlucky. And I am fairly certain that I have heard you specifically talk about whistling being bad luck in a theatre.
I mean,
But
And I've never heard you whistling in the theatre either. So
I can't whistle, which is quite unfortunate. But lucky in those circumstances.
I've heard
Does
a
anyone
lot of
else have any-
superstitions regarding whistling. I've not heard it within the context of theatre, but with that in mind, I would probably go with whistling.
it can't be wearing blue because people wear blue costumes, right? So it can't be.
No, they never wear blue. Nobody ever wears blue.
Well, what about the man from Splosh wearing his turquoise?
exactly.
There you are.
This
The
certainly wasn't
poster, it
unlucky.
haunts us.
So I think it's worth saying, Louis, just because people do it doesn't mean it's not bad luck. People still
Exactly.
whistle in
That is
theatres
true.
even though it's
That
I
is
mean,
true.
but a lot of theatre people are very superstitious, say with Macbeth and
Ah,
Break a Leg and all that. Out of those three, I'd go with whistling, or I'd be tempted to go none
Agreed.
at all. But what you've said, Louis, let's go whistling.
Yeah.
Is that your
Nice.
final answer?
yep.
If you're going for whistling, well, I'm afraid this is the one where they're all correct.
Ha ha ha.
Oh.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. I'll
Dang
just
it.
tell you a little bit about each of them. So, putting on your shirt the wrong way round, this is bad luck. And it's just generally the idea of like costume changes, confusing actors. I think we've all experienced that at some point. Essentially, the idea is once you're in costume and ready to act, that's who you are now. You can't.
I was once nearly forcibly attacked because I, as a child, put on a top the wrong way round and I was about to take it off again when someone ran at me and said, "Don't you dare." And I was very scared. And then I proceeded, as she rolled the top around me, to put my sleeves back out the right way around. It was probably one of the weirdest experiences of my
What would you do if
theatre.
it was? What would you do if it was dungarees? Would you have to pull your legs up and then spin it around and then
Oh,
put your legs
probably.
back down again?
Probably. She was not letting me take my head out of that top.
Did she explain, or did she just do it for you without
She-
any explanation?
At first she just did it, and then she got really close to me and said, "You could have ruined us all." So I kind of got an explanation, but I kind of
The whistling one, Louis, I've definitely mentioned to you at some point. It was in the good old days of theatre when scenery was manually lifted into the air by men hoisting ropes. They used to whistle to each other to say when sets should be changed. And if an actor was walking by and just happened to whistle, that could cause a stagehand to drop scenery on someone who was on the stage. So it's best not to whistle at all. So the myth surrounding blue is that blue dye used to be one of the most expensive fabric colourings, and producers, in an effort to discourage the spending of money on luxuries like this, started a rumour that blue costumes were unlucky. This is a superstition that's kind of died out now that fabrics are all so cheap and so available, but that was an interesting one we found.
The thing is, I was literally thinking about purple dye and being most expensive, literally when you said that as well. So I knew that.
Damn it, Sam.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, all right. I was just too caught up in Louis whistling.
You
So, the next question. What is the longest running show in the West End? A. Phantom of the Opera, B. The Mousetrap, or C. Les Miserables?
It's Mousetrap.
Are you sure?
Yeah, can you tell us more, Sam?
Yeah.
Les Mis is the longest running musical, but Mousetrap has been the longest running continuous show. And it's the whole superstition about...
Mousetrap, the Agatha Christie?
Yeah, it's the one where it's like you're not supposed to reveal the...
Yeah, I've heard that.
I saw it at The Curve recently. It was very good. It was very good until the ending. I really didn't like the ending, but that's another thing.
Ooh, no spoilers for...
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You're not supposed to tell people the ending. And that's the whole thing of why it's been so long running, of the whole secrecy behind the ending, of how he's supposed to keep it a secret.
Mousetrap, in fact, is the world's longest running theatre production in the West End since the 25th of November 1952. So, legendary crime novelist Agatha Christie's timeless thriller sees a group of people gathered together in a remote country house, only to discover there's a murder. Unfortunately, the original terms of the play state that the film rights cannot be sold until after the play has been closed in the West End for more than 6 months.
So that's why they can't make a film of it, because it just never shut.
There won't be a film anytime soon.
Interesting fact for this as well is it's so long running. My granddad went to see this in 1953 for his honeymoon. And then I got to see it. And I was so nostalgic.
I also, can I point out in the script notes, it doesn't say Millie's granddad, it just says my granddad, so he's all of our granddads.
Yes, a universal
belongs
granddad.
to all of us.
Nice. Let's move on to the next question. Couldn't get by without doing at least one Shakespeare one. Who did William Shakespeare have to play after an actor unfortunately passed away before the performance? Was it Hamlet, King Lear, or Lady Macbeth?
I like the idea of him playing Lady Macbeth.
I don't think it's Lear. I don't know. Lady Macbeth I'm sort of drawn to that one as well, but I feel like it's the same lines of Med.
You want to go with that because it's the
I
funniest
want it to be
one.
true. Yeah, exactly. I want it to be true, but I don't know if it is.
I'm maybe leaning towards Hamlet a bit then.
Like, historically, it could have been any of them, couldn't it? Because at that time, it wouldn't have been so funny that he was playing Lady Macbeth. So although we laugh, that's actually not unrealistic for the time. I like the answer Lady Macbeth because it's the smaller character, and so it would be easiest for him to slot into that role.
Yeah, that's why I wasn't thinking Lear, because it's such a massive role.
Very
Same with
much so.
Hamlet. So
As
I'd
is
go.
Hamlet.
Yeah, I'd be tempted for Lady Macbeth.
Well, you are correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
According to folklore, Macbeth was just cursed from the beginning. Like, because it involves a coven of witches and incantations, people just assumed it was cursed because so many actors had to drop out. Shakespeare had to take on the parts. And I think it's like you said, it's so humorous just now. It would have been so normal back then. But just imagining Shakespeare in a wig makes me happy.
By the sounds of it, because Macbeth was so cursed, nothing was normal at that specific time.
Wonderful. Yeah, I really like this next question. So, what's special about two seats in the Palace Theatre? A, they were decorated in gold and can only seat members of the royal family. B, they're bolted open so that the theatre ghosts can sit in them. Or C, they sold for £500,000 so the owners could use them for any performance in that theatre.
I reckon it's B.
The ghosts one.
Yeah, I
think
that.
it's
I feel like
ghosts as
people are
well.
superstitious enough.
We've had such a superstitious theme to all of these
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah.
And especially with like the gold one, they usually have their own box, like the royal box.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
unless the seats were in the royal box, which I don't think they would be, I'd go with the ghosts.
Is that your final answer?
It is.
Aye.
Yeah.
Wonderful. You are correct, which is why I like
Yeah.
it so much. I think it's just adorable that they're like, you know where you sit. But a little bit about the Palace Theatre. It opened in 1891 and still open today. The seating capacity is 1,400 on 4 levels. And
Surely it's 1,398 once the ghosts are sat down.
Exactly.
well, but are you calling
Well,
the
he's
ghosts?
got you
Are they
there.
not people, Louis? Are they not persons
Well,
in their own right?
they take away from the ticketing capacity.
Yeah, they wouldn't be able to buy tickets, would they?
You know what? I'll be the person to say it. I'll be the
anyone-
person to say it. Ghosts aren't people.
Can anyone guess who the two ghosts are? Or who
Is
they
one of them
might be?
Shakespeare?
It's actually one of them's an unknown ballerina who's been known to pirouette across the stage, and the other is a famous actor, Ivor Novello, who apparently watches the performance from the dress circle.
Yeah, so a lot of theatres obviously have superstitions like this because it's a very superstitious environment, and a lot of theatres have what's called a ghost light, and it remains turned on in the centre of the stage when all the other lights have been turned out. And it's also because there are many potential pitfalls, such as open trapdoors and orchestra pits to fall into, so you need to see where you're going, really. It wouldn't be good if you just fell down a hole. Yeah.
That's good general advice as well.
Yeah. You
Look
see a
out,
hole.
manhole
On a
covers.
side note, I've always noticed that it tends to be places that are more dangerous that have a greater level of superstition. I mean, the obvious parallel is miners who are very superstitious and work in incredibly dangerous situations. And I'm not just saying that because I watched a play about miners recently.
Did you think miners were superstitious then, Louis?
They are.
That is news to me.
It's a well-known fact is that miners are incredibly superstitious
Ah.
up to this day.
So well known, in fact, that no one else in this
Yeah.
podcast.
I thought that was well known.
You never know. Right, moving on. What was the inspiration for Elphaba's name in Wicked? The author of The Wizard of Oz, L. Frank Baum's name, a Greek goddess, or an early musical theatre actress?
Who knows musicals here?
I do.
But I can't think of immediately of a Greek goddesses that is close to Elphaba.
No.
I've read a lot of mythology recently.
Can we ask the audience? Is that something we can do?
Could we phone a friend?
I can call my cat, but whether she'll speak to you is another question.
This is a very interesting one because without knowing the answer, you can work it out from the questions.
Yeah.
I would go with the author because it is. Oh, it's his initials, isn't it? Like L, F, Alpha, B. I think it's the author.
Or it also sounds like alphabet, which is very Greek.
Yeah, but there's no Greek goddess. They specifically said Greek goddess.
Does anyone know if it's spelt with an E or an A?
It's an E, Elphaba, which makes sense. Like, what was the author's name again?
L, for Lima, and then
Yeah.
Frank Baum.
Let's go with that one.
LFB, Elphaba.
Okay, sure. We'll go with that.
Well, you are correct. Alphabet is
Well
just
done.
an acronym of the author's name. L. Frank Baum becomes Alphabet. I want to do that for all the characters I write from now on. Just make it.
The thing is, the author didn't actually write Elphaba. He just called her the witch. Obviously, because the Wizard of Oz, she was just the Wicked Witch. It was only when someone... Because the funny thing is, Wicked is based on a book, that's based on a film, that's based on another book, that's based on a musical, and soon it's going to be a film.
Yeah, the person who wrote the script for the actual musical Wicked was Winnie Holtzman, and the score was by Stephen Schwartz, who...
I love him.
For...
He's very, very talented.
Stephen Schwartz has written other hit musicals such as Godspell, Pippin, and the well-known Wicked. Nice. Shall we move on to the next question?
Yeah. So, what does the Shakespearean word kicky-wicky mean? Does it mean wife? Does it mean violence? Or does it mean a game that is not dissimilar to football?
I do hope it's football and not wife.
I'd go with wife. Shakespeare in English doesn't have like a literal translation, and kicky obviously violence and kicky football, and wife just seems a bit out there. But that's my reasoning.
Yeah, the wiki sounds like a wicket, which is a sports term, I'm told.
It is cricket, but this has got nothing to do with cricket. So
No.
Or maybe Shakespeare just didn't understand football.
oh, he thought it was
If
cricket.
he didn't,
Yeah.
then he's a man after my own heart.
I mean, if he developed cricket 200 years before the English did, that's quite impressive.
Yeah.
It was like football and like cricket, and it had a funny name. I think the interesting answer, as you say, is the wife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Refer to the wife as the kicky wiki.
Hey lads, do you want to go down to the pub later? Ah, nah, Kicky Wiki's acting up, can't come.
I gotta stay with the kicky wiki.
Oh, superb. So, are you going with wife?
Yeah.
You are correct.
Oh,
It
wow.
does mean wife, and Shakespeare lovingly invented over 1,700 of our common words, like critic, dauntless, dwindle, lackluster. He also invented the phrase, it's raining cats and dogs. Don't know why.
It was just from a fever dream.
Yeah.
Moving on to the next question. There are 41 Broadway theatres, but how many of them are actually on the street of Broadway? Is it A, 4, B, 9, or C, 18?
Where is Broadway?
Broadway's in New York, isn't
Yeah.
it?
New York does have very long roads.
It does. And you've also got Broadway and off-Broadway. I'm tempted to go with the higher answer, maybe 18, but it could also be 4. It could equally be the middle one. I don't
Why
know.
don't you split the difference and just go with the
Usually,
middle one?
I would go with the middle one, but every time I've gone for an answer, you've been right, so I want to go with your instinct this time.
I was thinking 18, but I don't want to take all this weight on my back.
No, I feel like you need it.
Do I?
We'll
Thanks,
put the
Med.
weight on your back, Sam.
Yeah,
No.
it's all
And if
on
it's
you,
wrong, we'll
Sam.
blame
If you
you.
get it wrong, you're disowned.
Yeah.
What
we'll kick you
was
out
the
of
middle
team.
answer again?
The middle answer was 9.
4, 9, or 18?
There are
don't know.
41 in total, so that's a lot of places to fit into one city. They may as well all be on the same road.
I'd find it more interesting if there was 0 on Broadway.
Yeah, imagine if Broadway was just a little side street, and they're all actually on 3rd Street.
That's why I'm thinking it's 4, because it's not actually many theatres are actually on Broadway. Let's go with 18. Should we go with 18?
Why not?
Okay.
So all Sam's pride is resting on this answer.
I had no pride to begin with, don't worry.
I'm afraid the answer is 4.
Ah!
Oh.
I said 4.
Goodbye, Sam.
I'll see you later.
Well, it was nice. Wait, is he actually gone?
He's back.
Yeah, I found this incredible. So 41 Broadway theatres in New York, but only 4 of them are actually on Broadway Street, and that is the Winter Garden, the Roundabout, the Marquee, and the Broadway Theatre. And in order to qualify for being a Broadway theatre, you must have at least 500 seats and be in very specific locations. If you have any less seats than that, it's called off-Broadway instead. But it's quite sad because only Broadway theatres can be deemed eligible for Tony Awards.
I was looking into that, and it's a similar thing with West End theatres and sort of other theatres in London. There's a specific list. Can't remember how many of West End theatres, but I believe you can actually, off West End ones as well, can be nominated for Tonys. Yeah, interesting fact. Wish that came up instead.
Nice.
This is a nice, fun question.
So, Walt Disney Florida has a record number of theatrical costumes. How many do they have, though? Is it A, 850,000, B, 1.2 million, or C, 2 million?
2 million is too convenient.
Yeah, it won't be a nice
Yeah.
round number,
It's
will
such
it?
a nice round number.
Yeah.
It can't be that.
That is a lot of costumes. Whatever the answer is, that's a lot of costumes. I could be so many different mermaids.
I wouldn't like to have to do the washing of their
No.
wardrobe.
I was tempted to go with the Med tactic of going down the middle for this one.
See, I've been to Walt Disney World Orlando, and I know a lot about it, but I don't know how many costumes they have.
Thank you for your contribution.
I know lots of other random useful facts. Would you like to hear them? Good, okay, thank you. They have a secret underground city area which has roads through it that's underneath the parks that is for ambulances and police, and that's where they'll send you if they want to escort you out of the park. They have plainclothes cleaners who go around cleaning every spill up at all times, and they are so populous that they make the park extra busy, and that's how it constantly stays clean. And everyone, the employees are not called employees, they're called cast members, even if they're these plainclothes cleaners as well. There's so many fun facts.
None of
I
which...
don't know how many costumes they have.
This has been Random Facts with Louis. Thank you
Yes.
for tuning in.
I think I'm with Sam in going down the middle.
Med's way. He knew that this decision, even though made by Sam, would have no bearing on him whatsoever.
Yes.
On Med's shoulders.
It's also
Yeah.
odd that I went with A instead of B. Completely different. But let's do it the Med way then.
So
If we get this wrong, Med, it's your fault.
Yeah, this one's
I
on
don't
you,
think
Med.
that's
this
fair.
is all on Med.
The last one got put on me.
Yeah, but you chose that one.
Oh, sorry, Med, I can't hear you breaking up. You got,
Okay, so we're going with 1.2 million. That is indeed the right answer.
Oh,
Well done,
Med.
Med.
Well done,
Yes,
Thank
well
you.
done.
Thank
well
you.
done, Med. You
Because
haven't got every single one wrong yet.
yet
We're on the same
Um,
team.
Disney World employs 62,000 people, making it the largest single site employer in the world. And if you think about it, like probably these costumes, I know they try to reuse them because whenever they're holding sort of auditions, they'll try and get people with the exact same measurements. And I remember people were kicking off before and there was like a protest or something because they were like, let new people in. And they were like, no.
I looked into becoming
Yeah.
a Disney princess, and the only, within the height restrictions, the only ones I can be is Wendy and Tinkerbell, and they're all the short ones.
I probably couldn't even make Tinkerbell, to be honest.
Right, moving on to the next question. What was special about Thespis, the travelling bard? Was he A, the first person to create different personas for the poems he performed? B, did he design the first theatre? Or C, was he the first performer to improvise most of his lines?
I like the idea that he was an improviser, but I don't feel
I
like
don't think that's right because improvisation was around in Roman theatre
Yeah,
again.
it's-
But I don't know if that was taken into account.
Also, well, improvisation is also a very natural thing, and it will have been done for as long as any sort of theatre has existed.
So I'd
So
go
we
with
don't really
A.
know
in
what would be the
that.
first account of that.
What was A?
First one to put on different personas.
Personas in the poems, yeah. I can imagine that.
The thing is, though, like, didn't chorus people technically be a lot of different people?
Yep.
Oh, it's a-
They used a lot of masks and stuff to change characters. A lot of Roman performances only had like 3 actors, huge chorus. It did hark back to poetry, so that's why I'm more inclined.
The other option was that he designed the first theatre. Well, he was a travelling bard, right? So why did he...
The first theatre was
A
a long time ago.
So A.
So you're going with A, he was the first to create different personas for the poems he performed, and you are correct. According to tradition, in 534 or 535 BC, not that makes much difference, Thespis astounded audiences by leaping onto the back of a wooden cart and reciting poetry as if he was the characters whose lines he was reading. So, as you very correctly said, they had plays before, but people wouldn't so much try and embody the characters they were performing. It was more kind of telling the tale of the characters. He was one of the first people to try and put on different voices, and in doing so people kind of dubbed him as the world's first actor. And it's from his name, Thespis, that we get the word thespian.
Oh.
Right, the next question. What has been the only 21st century Broadway musical to have an all-female creative team? Was it A, Dogfight, B, Waitress, The Heathers?
Don't look at me.
I think the obvious answer is Heathers, but because it's the obvious answer, I feel like it's probably not that either.
I'd go Dogfight. The reason being the other two, they'd be more marketed that way as being like the first all.
I've not heard of it.
Exactly. It's like if it was Heathers, I'd hear a lot more of when people talk to me about it, being like, "Oh, do you know it's the first all female creative staff?" I don't think it's Waitress either. Oh, I mean, but it's Sarah Bareilles, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'd say Dogfight, but that's.
Let's go with Sam's gut, and it's all on Sam.
Yeah.
So Dogfight is unfortunately incorrect. So I actually knew this one because the musical that was the first to be all-female creative team was the musical Waitress. It was publicised. It was publicised on their Instagram. They were very proud of it, and it sort of gave you an insight into the backstage team. So a little bit about the musical, which is a fantastic musical. It premiered on March 25th, 2016. Music and lyrics by, I can never say her name, but she's a phenomenal singer, Sarah Bareilles. Book by Jessie Nelson, and choreography by Lauren Lataro, and direction by Diane Paulus. So the top 4 creative jobs were done by women, along with the costume design and musical direction also being handled with an all-women creative team. And the fun fact is, the only other musical with a woman power team was the 1978 Broadway musical Runaways, which had the book, music, lyrics, and choreography and direction done by one woman, Elizabeth Swados, which is an incredible feat because you must imagine how much work goes into that.
Right, on to only a few more questions left. What is so special about the theatre at St. Michael's Cathedral in Gibraltar? A, it's on the ocean. B, it's in a cave. Or C, it's the biggest theatre in the world.
It's not going to be the biggest theatre in the world.
Because Gibraltar's tiny.
Gibraltar is tiny, and it's got loads of coast, which means it's going to be on the ocean or in a cave.
Yeah.
And when she said it was on the ocean, I was like, it's definitely that one. But then she said the cave, and now I'm not so sure. I think it's more likely to be on the ocean.
I'd say on the ocean just because if it had been, because it was specifically Gibraltar, I feel like it was in Gibraltar's rock rather than just in a random cave, because Gibraltar isn't actually that big. And I think I remember seeing a photo of this theatre with this like massive book stage in the actual ocean.
With the hand coming out onto it.
Yeah, the skeletal hand kind of thing. So I'd go with ocean.
Yeah.
I don't know where Gibraltar is, so I will go with you guys.
It's on the southern tip of Spain, right next to Africa. I can't remember which African country.
Morocco.
So you're going on the ocean, and I'm afraid that's the wrong answer. It's actually in a cave.
Ah!
Yeah, it's an incredible theatre. I fully recommend, since I can't show it to you, you look it up. It's full of stalagmites hanging from the ceiling. They use multicolour lights to light them up, and it can seat about 600 people, and it's used for all kinds of things: concerts, ballet, drama. And I know exactly the one you're talking about, the one that's coming out the sea, and it's a book.
There's also one like in the ocean, and like as the waves go through it, it plays music. The next question: what play has won the most Laurence Olivier awards? Is it A, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, B, The Woman in Black, or C, Mousetrap?
I seem to remember that the Cursed Child got a lot of awards.
Did it?
Yeah, it did.
Oh,
when it
wow.
Is it bad that when Becky said Harry Potter, I'm like, that's not a play? I've been to see The Cursed Child.
I think it won a lot of awards, like technical awards, and I've heard a lot about the technical aspects of it, so that's what I would go for. Yeah.
The Woman in Black is regarded as being good, but I don't know if that translates into a lot of awards.
No, I mean, I've also heard that The Cursed Child
Harry
isn't
Potter.
actually that good.
Yes, which is why I wasn't sure.
Yeah,
of it,
but
you
that's
know.
why I was surprised when I heard it had a lot of awards, because I also heard it wasn't very good.
I feel
It's
like
an
that's
interest-
yeah. Let's go with Harry Potter.
Okay. You are correct. So, in 2017, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child became the most awarded play ever, nominated for 11 awards and winning 9, including Best New Play. So it's outdone even highly regarded sort of shows, even though there's very mixed and divided opinion.
I can understand why it's so mixed, because the plot, there's some problems with the plot. But I do
interesting.
think the way they do the magic is just stunning. I still don't know how they're doing it. I went to see it with my cousin, who's a stage manager, and the whole way through she was just watching like, I should know how this is done.
Well, I'll tell you the answer. They use real magic.
Magic.
I should have known.
Oh.
So now we're on to the final question, which kind of follows on from the last one. What play has made the most money in the UK? Is it A, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, B, The Lion King, or C, Wicked?
Is this adjusted for inflation?
Let's say yes.
I'm throwing in my hat for
Well-
Lion King.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
so decisive.
I don't think it's The Cursed Child. The reason I'd lean to Lion King's been around for a long time.
And it's a very
And
successful show.
It is a very successful show, rightly so, in my opinion. Wicked, though, it tours a lot, which could also help it, but I think I might agree with Med on this one with Lion King.
Lion King.
Yeah, let's go Lion King.
So Lion King.
Okay, final answer, Lion King. And that is the right answer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Got
So-
a win.
It's amazing. Can anyone guess how much they might have made?
£4.
At least.
Oh, no. £5.
It's a little bit more than that. It's 22.5 million.
It was close though.
very
Good guess,
close.
Sam.
You were closer
Yeah,
than
no,
that.
very.
Yeah, it's amazing. And that's just in the UK. If you look worldwide, it's made 6.2 billion since 2014. We forget how much you can make from theatre, don't we? For a West End show, if you spend just £40 on a ticket and there's hundreds of you there every night, it adds up. Let's have a roundup of the scores. Becky, can you announce it?
Right, so out of 14 questions, you got 10 correct. Awesome.
That's a really good number as well. One of the scores to beat.
Ooh, wonderful.
So now we move on to, we have one bonus round, and this is a little bit different to the way we've done the quiz before. So basically, we're going to give you 5 theatre quotes, and you're going to have to tell us the play that it came from. And we won't reveal if you've got them right till the end of the round. So if you get them all right, you'll get 3 bonus points. I'm afraid if you get even one wrong, you won't get any points.
Oh.
Hang on a minute. I feel like we're answering 5 questions for 3 points here.
Yes, that's exactly what you're doing.
That's exactly
Point
This is
economy.
not a bonus round.
This is a harder round.
Is it multiple choice as well?
No. That's why they're bonus.
Ugh.
It's
I think we
hard.
should results, guys.
So, what play is this quote from? Exit pursued by a bear.
King's Tale, I think.
Yeah, I thought it had winter in it, but that might be my bad.
Oh, no, you might be right.
Is it A Winter's Tale or something? It's a Shakespeare, isn't it?
Yes. Because I remember, because we did this in Shakespeare Marathon, but I can't remember.
So this
Sounds
isn't a
right.
quote. This is a stage.
It's a stage direction from, I think it's A Winter's Tale.
Nice. Well, we'll move on to the next one.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
I want to know.
I want
the-
immediate validation.
So the next quote is, "Death does not discriminate between the sinners or the saints."
This is
That's
Hamilton.
Hamilton.
It's Hamilton.
It's Aaron Burr in Wait for It.
Is it Wait for It? I thought it was Dear Theodosia.
No, it's Wait
Is
for
it
It.
Wait for It?
Yeah.
Thank you for that answer. The next quote is, "The greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return."
Nothing.
Matilda. Is it in that?
I don't recognise it, so
Because learning sounds like school.
no. I don't
No, it's more like accepting yourself, isn't it? But
Yeah. Which makes me think of Wicked, but I can't place that.
I also thought Wicked as well. Let's go Wicked.
Cautiously, we're cautiously
seen it.
going with Wicked.
Cautiously.
Okay.
Right, let's move on to the next one. Yes, people will be out of work, but by then there'll be no work left to be done.
That sounds like RUR or a futuristic play about technology taking over society. I want that to be RUR.
See, I was more.
I
I
don't
was more.
recognise it.
No, I don't recognise it. And I was thinking more like Billy Elliot with the Miners' Revolt, but I could see where you're saying like RUR.
That's where my mind went.
If it's RUR, you've got the director, producer, and 2 people in the cast, and we don't recognise it.
That might be
That'd be
why they did it. Just to
mess.
I don't appreciate these head games, Millie, Rebecca.
I think it's in RUR. I
Okay,
think
let's
it's,
go
I think
RUR
it's
then.
a Domin line in RUR.
And your final quote is, "It was 9:30 on Christmas Eve."
It's a Christmas Carol, isn't it?
Yeah, that's going to be a Christmas Carol, surely.
Would it help to
Dickens.
say it's the opening line of something, Becky?
It is. It is the very opening line. In the play, you'd have heard it a lot.
I can't think of anything else that's happened on Christmas Eve. Christmas Carol?
Let's put Christmas Carol down for
I
that
can't
one.
think of anything else. So yeah.
So we'll go through them one by one. Becky, do you want to reveal the play for the first one?
I do. I've put it down as correct because you basically got it. It is The Winter's Tale, and you said A
Hey.
Winter's Tale. But that's...
Gotta give them
I'll
that.
give you
Yeah,
that.
if you wouldn't have given me that, I would have left right now.
Yeah, this-
And for the second one, you were also correct. It was Hamilton.
Yeah. The third one, you were incorrect, and I'm ashamed of all of you because I love this
Wow.
so dearly. It is from Moulin Rouge. When he's on his typewriter and he's like, "The greatest thing you'll ever love is just to love and be loved."
I don't feel
and...
bad about
Like
not getting
Moulin.
that because I've never seen it.
I've
Never seen Moulin Rouge.
Oh,
I've
you
only seen
guys.
the film and I don't care for it, so I'm okay with that.
Oh.
For the fourth one, yes, people will be out of work, but by then there'll be no work left to be done.
RUR.
And you are correct.
You are indeed.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the final one is the play that actually inspired me the most was The Woman in Black. And this line, it was the best opening I've ever seen for a play because basically it starts off and it's really serious. And he comes onto the stage, he walks down the aisle past the audience and he opens a book and then he goes, "It was 9:30 on Christmas Eve." And then this other guy comes in, he's like, "What are you doing? You're so sad. You need to bring the audience in." And it's a fantastic opening because he says the line about 10 times and he just can't get it right because whenever he starts, it was 9:30 and he just can't get him to change the delivery. I absolutely loved The Woman in Black because for me, the technology, the way they did things, the main 2 actors in it are extremely talented because the stage is basically empty. And there's one scene where they have a train and a horse wagon set up and they all do it with the movement of their bodies. It's kind of like 39 steps and it's just absolutely fantastic. And the way they build up the horror, it's done in such an expert way. It's not overly done. It's not jumpy.
It is terrifying. When
Yeah.
I saw this, I sat next to my friend and every time something scary happened, I grabbed them and they said I was more terrified of you than the actual play.
I love it.
Well worth seeing. So now we've done the bonus round. You have a total of 10 points, which is really good. You're definitely still in the game. Now we are going to move on to the performances. So every episode we're going to have some performances, be it poetry, monologue, music. And for today we have 2 performances and the first will be done by our very own Med. And a few weeks ago, I asked Med to give me an introduction for him. And I'm
I
not
was
sure if he
wondering when
remembers
this
this.
is going to come in. No, I do. Go on.
Because at the time, we weren't sure you were going to be on the episode where you did your performance. But I'm very glad you sent this to me. And is it okay if I do it anyway?
Oh, please do.
I'll try and get this right. What do Shakespeare, Tolkien, and Stephen King all have in common? They all pale in comparison to my next guest. The parable of the King Midas could be used to describe them, as everything they touch turns to gold. From poetry to plays and acting, they are a true Renaissance character in our modern era. I guarantee you all of this is true, as I would not undermine my integrity as your podcast host, and I most certainly have not been told to say this, so that they would consider making an appearance.
Nope.
And with that, take it away, Med.
I would like to just tee it up a bit. So I find it hard sometimes to write poetry because I don't always have the inspiration to do so. But I met this one person on this one occasion, and they had such a profound effect on me. that after meeting them, I went home and I wrote this poem about them. Of course, I don't want to say their name because I don't want people finding out who they are or whatever, so I'm going to say, for the purpose of this, we'll call them Ola. So this is Ode to Ola. Ola was a man who even Shakespeare would struggle to describe with words in a manner that did not end in itch. Ola could wear manic-looking makeup, bright big shoes, and big red hair, and yet the C word I'd use to describe him still would not be clown. Ola spoke as if he wanted to be a jazz musician, but with no artistic talent. He thought if he smoked 6 packets of cigarettes every hour, surely that would suffice. I want to make it clear at this point I do not hate him. But within 15 minutes I interacted with Ola, annoyed me faster than anyone else I had ever met. So Ola, I do not wish you any misfortune, death or disease, but equally, I do wish you every mild inconvenience life can muster. Ola, I wish that every public toilet you ever sit on is just slightly ever so warm to make you uncomfortable. Ola, I wish that every time you go to a shop that everyone who was in the shop prior just leaves, so you have to make awkward small talk with the people who work there, and you're forced to buy something even if you didn't want to. Ola, I wish when you step into a shower, the water's just a little too hot and you have to spend some time readjusting it, but it never quite gets right, and that just draws your day to a small halt. Ola, I wish your favorite TV show gets cancelled. Ola, I wish you happiness. Ola, I want you to feel happiness as every step you took was a note in a jazz musical carefully constructed just for you. I want you to feel the warm touch of euphoria like a quilt stitched from all your happiest moments, enveloping you without worry. Ola, I want you to wake up every day knowing that there's nothing that could possibly drag you down, so you cannot help but smile at the prospect that you get to live another day of your life. Ola, I want you to have all the happiness imaginable, so you can finally understand what you take away from people when they meet you.
I love that so much.
I really want to know who Ola is.
Oh,
It's me.
like honestly, I thought the beginning as well, just like the slight inconveniences, like everyone can relate to them because they're just so unsettling.
Cancelling their favourite TV show is a bit too far, though, Med.
I did think about that, yeah. And
What
what if
happened
his
with
favourite
Firefly?
TV show is my favourite?
Exactly. Like,
God,
Oh, thank you, Med.
yeah.
No problem.
Speaking of curses, let's talk about Disney remake, and that links smoothly into our next performance. Is going to be Addie singing "Make a Man Out of You" from Mulan, and I must say, sometimes he'll just send snippets. I haven't heard the whole thing, so I can't wait to. The reason I think Disney remakes the curses is because why? Why Disney? But anyway.
That was a seamless segue. Yes, so welcome Addie Pun.
Woo!
Let's get down to business to defeat the Huns. Did they send me daughters when I asked for sons? You're the saddest bunch I've ever met, and you can bet before we're through, Mr. I'll make a man out of you. Tranquil as a forest, burn on fire within. Once you find your center, you are sure to win. You're a spineless, pale, pathetic lot, and you haven't got a clue. Somehow I'll make a man out of you. I'm never gonna catch my breath, second by those who knew me. Boy, was I fool in school for a cutting gym. This guy's got him scared to death, hoping he doesn't see right through me. Now I really wish that I knew how to swim. Be a man, you must be swift as a coursing river, with all the force of a great typhoon, with all the strength of a raging fire, serious as the dark side of the moon.
Go Addie.
Oh,
Oh,
was awesome.
beautiful.
oh my gosh.
As you'll know, we're not charging any money for this podcast. So instead, we've decided we'd like to promote a different charity each week. And this week, for the first time, we have two. We've got the Actors Benevolent Fund, which, if anyone's not heard about it, it's a wonderful association that really helps actors in their time of need. When my dad needed back surgery, they helped pay for that. Just doing endless good for actors because, as we all know, actors are out of work a lot and could do with financial support a lot of the time, especially in the current situation we're in. So it'd be really great if you could give to the association. And we also have another charity that Sam has brought in, the Stroke Association. And Sam, would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, it's just a very personal charity to both me and my family. It's not greatly talked about charity such as like the cancer research and all that, but it also always needs the money, and strokes tend to be very devastating to people who get affected by them and their whole entire families. So please feel generous.
It's such a worthwhile cause. And I think we have neared the end. Thank you so much, you guys, for giving your time to us and telling us such interesting stories about your theatre careers.
Definitely.
Thank you for having us.
Indeed.
Does this mean I can't go on my rant about how much I hate Annie the musical?
Yes, it most definitely.
In fact, I'm just going to cut it here. This is going to be the end.
Sam, how much do you hate Annie the musical?
Oh, Annie the musical. Oh my God. Like, I would rather poke myself in the eye than have to watch Annie again after watching it for 19 times. So the problem with Annie is you get small children who just can't act, and then you put them in this big show where they're the main focus of the thing, and the adult actors are fine, but the children are absolutely garbage, and you always get the small ginger child, usually quite all right.
This has been the Bright Side Podcast, created by me, Millie Henson, produced by Layla Elderwish, and co-hosted by Matthew Harper and Rebecca Hughes. This podcast focuses on positivity and the wonderfully weird things our world has to offer. Thank you for listening.